What's happening, dogs? Mr. Allen here with a video on solving quadratic equations using any method. So at this point, you should have been exposed to solving by factoring, whether that be with a lead coefficient of 1, a trinomial with lead coefficient greater than 1, or maybe even GCF, greatest common factor. Solving using square roots, using the quadratic formula, maybe even completing the square. Personally, I don't like to use that one for solving, but those first three, factoring, square roots, and quadratic formula, are going to get you through these problems right here. All right, so it's up to you to pick which one you think is going to be best here, or I guess up to me in this video, but I'm going to give you guys some hints as to how to pick the best one. So first off, it's got to be set equal to 0 if I'm going to solve using factoring, right, or quadratic formula. And since I'm dealing with a trinomial here, I'm going to go ahead and set this equal to 0. So I got x squared plus 6x minus 7 equals 0. Now, does anything multiply to negative 7 and add to 6? That's checking to see if this factors, because factoring, that's your bread and butter, baby, right? If it can be factored, we're good to go. If you got to use quadratic formula at this point, you got it there, okay? But we're going to try to factor. Well, yes, positive 7, negative 1 does work. So plus 7, and then x minus 1, that equals 0. So then I'm going to set these equal to 0. X plus 7 equals 0. X minus 1 equals 0. And I'll get x equals negative 7. And I'll get x equals positive 1. There we go. Beautiful. Fantastic. All right. Next one over here. I've got this set of parentheses that's squared, right? Now, I could rewrite it as x plus 4 times x plus 4, multiply it out, combine like terms, set it equal to 0, see if I can factor it, and then use quadratic formula if I can't. But that sounds terrible, okay? I have a binomial squared, right? So if I isolate that binomial squared, then I can use square roots to solve this. And, shout out to some of my homies in Algebra 2 Skill Development. All right. We use the purple box. Okay. We use the purple box. So I'm going to isolate this box. Not really a box anymore, but there we go. Boom. All right. It looks like, is it like Montana maybe? I don't know. Anywho. So we want to get this guy alone, and then I can use square roots. Okay. So focus on the purple box, or purple Montana in this case. All right. So I'm going to add 5 first. So add 5 to both sides. And I get 3, and then parentheses x plus 4 squared equals 12. Then I'm going to divide by 3. So I'm going to have x plus 4 quantity squared equals, well, 12 divided by 3 is going to give me 4. Now I can square root on both sides. And I'm going to get x plus 4 equals plus or minus 2. Okay. Now, you could try and do this in your head. That's fine. I'm all for it. But I like to set up 2 separate equations at this point, okay? So I like to say, okay, I got x plus 4 equals 2, and I got x plus 4 equals negative 2. That way, I don't screw anything up, because sometimes people, they like subtract the 4, and then they get 2 wrong answers. Just write down 2 separate equations here, and then it's 1 step each. I got x equals, well, I'm going to subtract 4, so negative 2. And over here, I'm going to subtract 4, I get x equals negative 6. There we go. So perhaps purple box if you got purple, right? Box out the thing that you're going to isolate, and then you can square root, right? Do not square root until you have the thing that's squared, whether it's just x that's squared, or in this case, a binomial that's squared, alone on its own side. Then you can square root. Cool? Awesome? Fantastic? Dope. All right. Let's go to this guy here. Oh, boy. So can we factor this? It's already set equal to 0. If I can factor it, I will. Otherwise, I got to use quadratic formula. So there's a couple ways you can check to see if it factors. 3 times negative 2. That gives me negative 6. Do any 2 numbers multiply to negative 6 and add to 5? Yes. 6 and negative 1 would do that. So this is factorable. I don't need to use quadratic formula. Whew. But I do have to factor with the lead coefficient. I'm going to show you guys how I guess and check this one, because I got 2 prime numbers here. So I know the first one has to be 3x, and the other one's going to be x, or vice versa, okay? Then, I either need to have 1 and 2, or 2 and 1. This is where the guess and the check comes in. All right, well, if I throw the 2 here, I'm going to get 6x if I multiply these 2 together. And if I put the 1 here, I'll get 1x, okay? 6x and 1x. If one of those is negative, would it add to 5x? Yes. If this is negative and this is positive, positive 6x, negative 5x, boom. Sorry, positive 6x, negative 1x adds to 5x. We are factored. And now I can set these guys equal to 0, okay? So I'd have 3x minus 1 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0. And I'll get x, let's see here, add 1. So I get 3x equals 1. Divide by 3, and I get x equals 1/3. And then over here, I'm going to subtract 2. I get x equals -2. So there's my 2 answers. You could have done the rainbow method where you set up factor by grouping and all that. You should get to those 2 right there. I like guess and check when they're small, manageable numbers, especially if they're prime numbers. It's, easy money with that one if you practice it, okay? But you got to practice guess and check. So hopefully that made sense. All right, next one here. Does anything multiply to -18? 2 times -9 is -18 while adding to 4. I got 1 and 18. I got 2 and 9. I've got 3 and 6. No dice. Quadratic formula it is. So this is my A, my B, and my C. So I've got x equals the opposite of B, -4, plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times A, which is 2, times C, which is -9, all over 2 times 2. All right, cool. Let's clean this thing up. So if you want to plug some stuff into your calculator, if you are allowed to use your calculator on this one, you could plug all of these numbers, no square root, but all the numbers in your calculator at once. Make sure you have it typed in exactly how I have it here. We got ourselves, let's see here, 4 times 2 times 9. That's going to be 72, right? Okay. So what we've got now is, let's see here, 16 plus 72 all over 4. Okay. And then let's see, we got, oh boy, hopefully don't run out of room, equals -4 plus or minus the square root of, that's 88, right? 88 over 4. Okay. Unfortunately, at this time, we are going to have to simplify the square root of 88, okay? I'm going to actually do that right around here, right here, okay? So if I were to do the square root of 88, and I had to break this down with a factor tree, I got to divide by 2, and I get 44. Divide by 2, I get 22. 2, I get 11. Do I have any pairs? Yes. Pair of 2s, no other pairs. They're not like, okay? So I'm just going to have 2 comes out. 2 times 22 is, 2 times 11 is 22. That goes back in. So now what we have here is, I'm going to bring myself up right over here. We've got -4 plus or minus, and then we have 2 root 22 over 4. Can we simplify this any further? Everything outside of the radical, the -4, the 2, and the 4, are all divisible by 2. So we're going to do that. Final answer here. I'm going to throw it in a different color so it stands out here a little more. We've got -2, because I divided that by 2, plus or minus, divided by 2, that's just 1, so square root of 22 over +2. That is my final answer. Boom. Let's see if we can see it all. We can, I think. Perfect. Excellent. Got a little close to the edge there. So, beautiful. Sometimes you'll have to simplify it. Sometimes you won't. Hopefully, fingers crossed here, you end right here. Like if this was like a number you couldn't simplify, like if this was like 17, square root of 17, whatever, right? Then I can't break it down and we just stop, okay? Some teachers want you to write them in separate, like roots, where you have -2 plus root 22 over 2 and -2 minus root 22 over 2. I prefer it like this. It's less writing. It's clear. It's fine. It's awesome, all right? So there we go, guys. 4 different ways there, right? That's a lot. Solving quadratics can be really tricky because there's like different ways to do them, whether you factor, solve using square roots, quadratic formula. There's a lot of options. So look for those key things. Always look to factor first if you have an x squared and an x, right? Make sure you set it equal to 0 before you factor. The only time it's not equal to 0 is when you're solving using square roots. You're trying to isolate the squared part, get everything else on the other side there. But that's it for that one, guys. Hope you followed along and enjoyed it. And if so, like it, subscribe it, tell everybody about it. See ya.